Well. Good damn afternoon, Americans. Jericho Green here with you once again, but this time I shan't be solo. I don't know if I use that word right. Don't worry about that. The important thing is I have a special guest here, and we've done a few of these. And before we get started, we talk how you've been doing. We talk about the family and stuff like that, what we're going to go over in the interview. And I think Colin and I have become computer friends. We've never met in person, but I think we got a real cyber friendship building here. You know what? That's enough. Let me bring the man in himself, Mr. Colin Plume, CEO of Noble Gold Investments. What's up?
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm great, man. How are you? How's everything going from the Colin Plume headquarters?
Great. Yeah, so busy this year. So much happening in the markets. An election year. Last year or a year ago, I was saying that there's no chance they're going to keep interest rates high in this year, and it looks like it's starting to come to fruition. They haven't lowered rates yet, but the CPI numbers are getting lower every time. Which is that's the one thing they need, right? They just need to lower CPI, and then they can raise rates. And stock market's up right now in this moment, but that's part of this strategy to keep their guy in office is to lower rates, because if rates stay where they are, interest rates across the country, Biden's toast. But if they lower them a little bit, real estate comes back a bit, that's going to be his, that's where he's going to go. Now, the economy, is it great because interest rates are lowering? No, it's not great. But it'll give them a little fuel. And so as I sort of thought would happen, they're starting to lower rates. But also, it's great for gold, because when they open up the money supply, that's always fantastic for gold. More money out there, more, deflating of the dollar. Obviously, our debt's $33 trillion. That's always a positive for assets that have a limited supply, like gold and silver, platinum, palladium. Those are going to benefit. And gold's been doing great. Last year was up 12.8%, 2023. So, outperformed bonds and outperformed, most of the indexes. So it had a great year last year. But it's pretty exciting if they lower rates and open up the money supply, what metals can do this year.
Now, something you mentioned, it made something pop into my head. So you mentioned that if they lower the interest rates, that will bode well for Sloppy Joe, as we call him. But where's that disconnect? Because you hear the elected officials saying interest rates are down, the economy is improving. But somebody like myself, who's into social media for a living, I'm in the comment sections a lot. And that's just not reflected in the comments. People are always saying, what are you talking about? There'll be a clip of Joe Biden or Harris saying that, and you look in the comments and people are like, where is this cost of living going down? Where are these interest rates going down? Because I'm still paying an arm and a leg at the pump, at the grocery store. So does it take that much time for it to go from them saying it's great to us actually seeing that? How does that work?
No, I listen, the CPI has always been manipulated to allow whoever's in office kind of skew it in the way that they want. No, obviously wages have not gone up as much as they're reporting a low unemployment. Wages haven't gone up enough to reflect that. If our unemployment was truly 3.7 or 3.6, you would see some wage growth. But for most of the business owners that I know, a lot of the wages are either stagnant because they can get that job at that price, or sometimes even lower. I know a lot of business owners that are shedding staff right now because they're worried about high rates, because part of their businesses, they need to borrow money. And as long as, you're looking at rates, for a business owner to borrow money, you're probably in the 9 to 15% range, whereas years before you get it much cheaper. So they're afraid to expand and grow. So they're shedding people. So at the end of the day, if cost of goods continues to go up and wages are stagnant, and when I say rates, I'm talking mostly mortgage rates. Still, if you go online right now, you're looking at the sevens. So as long as those things are 85% higher than where they were a year or two ago, I don't think anyone's going to feel it. I also think that a lot of home values in many areas have dropped, which is a big thing that people think is important. I've always said the value of your home is irrelevant, really. As long as you can afford the mortgage, you're just locking in a rate for 30 years. Everything else is you're never gonna. Most people want to live in the house until they take their last breath, if they can. So it doesn't add any value to you to have. There's no income you're going to derive off your home. Eventually, you won't have a mortgage, but if you think about it, if your mortgage is, let's say, $4,000 a month, in 30 years, $4,000 won't be worth anything. It's nothing. It's negligible. So I think it's what it comes down to is the cost of goods are still going up, the cost of food still going up, and we're just not seeing expansive growth out there. People are afraid to grow their businesses. And then obviously AI is playing into it. A lot of jobs are kind of going away. A lot of middle management jobs are going away. And so, yeah, I don't think it's been great for people. I think that, lowering rates, people will feel a little richer because their homes will probably hold value, maybe go up a bit, but it's not real money.
And one more thing before we get started. I've learned a lot from doing these interviews with you, and whenever we do them, I always like to think about the person who might not understand all the stuff about finances and all these acronyms and stuff that we throw around. So, being that we're coming off of the holidays, Christmas time, Christmas movies. So there's a famous, I don't know if you call it a meme, a clip out there of Kevin McAllister from the movie Home Alone, 1990. He goes to the grocery store and he buys orange juice and laundry detergent and a microwave mac and cheese meal and some other things. So you look at the total, and I think he paid $19 or something like that. It was under $20.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have somebody say, okay, let's buy those same items today. And I think it was around $50.
Right.
So I don't know, as quick as possible, if it's even possible, but whatever. Why? Okay, one of the things he bought was a bottle of Tropicana orange juice. So why does that bottle of Tropicana orange juice cost $1.25, let's say, in 1990? But the same container, say a 32-ounce bottle of Tropicana, same company, same oranges, same orchard that the oranges were grown in, same amount of liquid in the container. Why is it now $4.79?
Yeah. It really comes down to the way that we've created our economy. Our economy is built on cheap money and creating an environment of heavy inflation. That's how we've built, pretty much the economy of the world right now. Is everything is built on the idea that we've been able to keep inflation low. And the thing that COVID taught us is that the genie's out of the bottle. Everything has skyrocketed in terms of cost, and everybody saw it in terms of every item. Milk is a great one. If you go back even 10 years, the cost of milk has nearly tripled. It's just gotten more and more expensive for those manufacturers to get the products out. And, part of it is government regulation, compliance. There's a lot of that they have to build into it, that, there's certain things that they have to do, and that compliance they have to build that in the cost. I was talking to you about a bank that I was considering becoming an owner in, and it's a regional bank, and the amount of compliance costs, it was almost like 30 to 32% of their cost, day-to-day cost, was in compliance for a regional bank. And that's more than doubled over the last 10 years. So every business has this compliance level that has continued to grow, and it's made it more and more difficult to run a business because, you have state governments, you have local, municipalities adding different fees and compliance. And they're all, the government's just all trying to take a piece of the action, and it increased the cost of goods pretty dramatically. And it's pretty consistent. I mean, I know as a business owner, I own multiple businesses. It's shocking sometimes. You find out a new regulation that comes out, and you obviously have to comply with it. And for instance, federal minimum wage, 20 of the 50 states had minimum wage increases anywhere from like 3 to almost 10% this year in 2024. So as a small business owner, you have to comply with those things. So it's really, inflation is cost of goods plus government. Government wants to take a lot out of it, which that's how it's always worked. Now, I will tell you that state governments have actually moved away from taxing gold and silver. There's like 5 new states that are not taxing it. So there's a lot of states that are moving towards allowing gold and silver purchases to not be taxed on purchase. They still tax, some of them will still tax on a profit. But overall, a lot of compliance, government getting their hands in and making it more expensive for business owners to do business, which is one of the big reasons why people love a business owner like Trump being in office, is because he's going to try to pull a lot of that stuff away. And for people that remember when Trump was in office, he went directly at China, and one of his big initiatives was trying to focus on our tariffs and trying to get more people buying here in the U.S. and trying to keep the money here, because at the end of the day, the more that manufacturing is done here, it's better for us as more jobs. And so that was one of his big initiatives, was going after China, which is very unpopular. It's interesting that he took it on, because I don't think it's a behemoth for him to take on China that way. But it's one of the things that business owners really like about some of the policies that he's put in place.
So what you mentioned, Trump being in office. So as a business owner, despite things like that, taking on China the way he did, I mean, do you still feel like this is great? Even though he is, Trump's going to Trump, but as a business owner, did you feel much more comfortable with him in office, doing things the way he did?
Yeah, because I mean, I think overall, as much as it hurts and helps him, the idea of having someone that runs a business that has to make decisions, and make unpopular decisions, I think a lot of people like that decisiveness in office, and so there's just certain things that he, corporate tax, he dropped. The corporate tax structure for LLCs, he dropped from, I think it was 28% to 20%. They had talked about raising it. So a number of these things that help business owners, and that's the kind of thing that encourages a business owner to add employees, is to have that lower tax basis. Mm-hmm. Then you feel more comfortable to go out and add more, and put more money in circulation and get some more jobs in circulation. So yeah, I mean, I think, there's a long list of those items that he was, really focused on. But obviously, he's a business owner. He looks at things as, trying to get us into profit and trying to move us away from debt. He recently, last week, has been talking about, if he gets reelected, he won't allow CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, which I think is great. There's a lot of talk about the U.S. moving onto a digital currency. And we've already moved pretty far away from having a lot of cash out in circulation. There's only 2.2 trillion, I believe, here in circulation in terms of actual dollars. And so the actual cash in the world is dropping a lot. the idea that it could go more and we go to a digital currency, which means there'd be, next to none. I think for people that understand how money works would be pretty scary, because they already have, the government and the Fed already has sort of free reign, but if there was no money out there, nothing really tangible or real, how bad could our debt go? How bad could Congress continue to, the spiral effect? So he came out and said no CBDCs. So that's, something that's exciting. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, if he gets reelected, I think most people believe he'll open up a lot of business opportunities. And I think that's what we need to do. I mean, nowadays, as I said earlier, if a lot of these middle management jobs are the jobs that, are paying 60,000 to up, a few $100,000, if those jobs are going to go away because of AI or how business is structured, really the only way for someone to create a good family life is to start a business. And so if you have someone like him come in office and pull a lot of the regulation back and a lot of the tax back, that will create opportunities for people to go out and start their own business. And I think that's where we're going. More and more people are going to go out and start their own business. And it's really, what our country was sort of founded on, is this entrepreneurial spirit. And we need to continue to encourage that, because I think a lot of the large corporations, the good jobs are gone or going away. And so we need to be able to encourage people to go out and create new ideas and create opportunities for themselves.
Agreed, 100%. As a small business owner myself, and not only do I want them to make it more appealing and easier for people to start their business, but also once you do, kind of stay out of the way. There's that show, the Parks and Recreation, and there's a character, Ron Swanson, and there's a clip where he says, "Here's how business should run in America. I have apples to sell. You want an apple. Here's your apple. Give me my money. That's it."
Right.
And I think, and is it that simple? Maybe not, but to a certain extent, yeah, allow us to run our business, allow the customers to come in and patronize our business with minimal, government interference.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think of 30 different roadblocks to that business that's actually in place,
Right?
The FDA and the regulation, and who's gonna inspect the apple, what's gonna happen on the other side, the insurance that you have to have, because God forbid you got one bad apple, that
literally
insurance, another thing that insurance rates, for homeowners have skyrocketed across the country. I mean, everybody's feeling their insurance go to another level. So and that's not going to be reported on your CPI. The fact that most of the people I know that their homeowners insurance rate have gone up anywhere from 10 to 25% this year.
Wow.
And that's a lot of has to do with the fact that the replacement cost of your house has gone up significantly. Obviously, national disasters, a lot of companies are just pulling out of the market in different places. So there's a lot of costs, Jericho, that have gone up that are not directly tied into the CPI. And that's why, to go back to your original question, people don't feel like they're getting more wealthy. So, yeah, I mean, there's a great article that came out, goldeagle.com website, that talked about, going back from 1999 to today. And actually, that article talks about how gold has outperformed the S&P 500. And if you look at those stats, basically gold has averaged a 7.6% return since 99, and the S&P 500 has averaged about 7%. Bonds have averaged about 4.1% over that time period. Some of the other indexes maybe have done a little bit better, but overall, gold for the last 24 years, 25 years has performed pretty consistently to the tune of what you would expect a commodity like that to do. And I think a lot of people today, if they could get that kind of consistent return, obviously nobody has a crystal ball for the future, but I think it is interesting now that we have a good amount of time to look at gold and some of the other investments that are out there and say, hey, this has been a pretty good investment. And I think it's something that people should consider and look at.
And you mentioned earlier talking about the cashless society and the digital currency. Two questions. What does a cashless society look like? Let's say America does go digital currency. What does that look like? And how would gold be performing in that kind of society? What would that has to have a major effect on gold?
I mean, I think if we go completely away from cash, they'd probably have to consider backing some of our that digital currency with some kind of asset that has value. And if we do have all the gold in Fort Knox that they say we do, it shouldn't be an issue to have some kind of, similar to what the banks do when they have fractional reserve. Like, we should have a fractional reserve gold system based on this new currency. And if that were to happen, gold would skyrocket. And I think that, if you look at this, if you look at 2023, the buying of gold from central banks has really soared. So I think countries like China, a lot of European countries, Russia, that continue to buy gold, they probably believe we're going in this direction eventually. And so they wanted a tangible investment to sort of have in their reserve to hedge their bet against the fiat money or whatever kind of money that we go to at some point. Because I think it's inevitable that we will have to change, because how do we address the debt that we're in? The interest payments on 33 trillion, I think it's our fourth or fifth biggest line item in our government's budget right now to cover that debt. So eventually it'll be too expensive for us to cover. So the only way to solve that would be to go to a new currency, to just go, this one's gone. Let's go to something new. So I think that gold could play a pretty significant part, because they need to create trust in that new currency. The only thing that would create trust is an asset that has a limited supply like gold. Maybe gold and silver. Silver might be tough because there's just such an industrial demand that it's probably not going to make sense for central banks to hold a lot of silver because they need it. They need it out in the world. But I think gold would make a lot of sense if we went to sort of a fractional reserve system to have that in reserve to give that new currency some validity.
And do you think we could be, I don't want to say, I guess, pushed into that digital currency because the rest of the world is getting on board with it? Or could we kind of stand our ground and go with a digital currency when we're ready?
I mean, it really comes down to when China and a lot of these countries call in the debts, right? I mean, if they want some of that money back that we owe earlier, we're going to have one or two options. We're either going to have to pay it back, which we can't. We're either going to have to give up some assets, right? And that's happened. There's been situations where countries, Argentina and Spain have had situations where big hedge funds have owned some of their debt and basically said, you can't pay us, we'll take this building. We'll take this piece of real estate. So there's going to be a crossroads for us as a country where we'll have to either decide if we're going to give up some assets and let, China own some of us here and some of our, substantial real estate, which would make the most sense. Or if we go to a new currency or however we do it, I think we're going to run into a problem right now. If you look at the debt, I mean, you go to the U.S. debt clock and you go back, I mean, you put it back even 10 years to today, the amount, it's like when you have a credit card, Jericho, and you're like, I can cover the payment, and then there's a point where you can't, and either you get a new credit card, which is not great, or you borrow from a family member, or you file for bankruptcy. And I think we're at the point of probably either filing for bankruptcy or getting a new currency is what I think will happen.
And what kind of time frame would you put on that? Like, what are we looking at?
I think it's realistic it could happen in the next 3 to 5 years. And I say that partly because we're in 2 wars right now that we're funding. Those costs are skyrocketing for us. If we could get out of some of the wars that we're in, we could probably delay it. And then, the big question is can Congress do a budget and not keep increasing the debt limit? Can they put a budget together that makes sense? And that's really what it comes down to. Every time they negotiate every 2 to 3 months on raising the debt limit, the Republicans have to take concessions that really don't make it happen, because everyone's worried about this collapse where we run out of money. But I think at some point someone has to put their foot down and say, listen, we're going to have to make some uncomfortable cuts on some of our big expenditures. And that's the key. If we can do that, then then things can change for us in a positive way. So it's a combination of making some uncomfortable cuts on some of our big programs, and also trying to get our revenue up in this country, our GDP up. If we can do those two things, we can hold off bankruptcy. But if we don't, and my prediction is we don't, because politicians want to get reelected, and these are uncomfortable conversations, then it comes down to, when does it happen? But if we're 40 trillion or 45 trillion in debt, which we will be, in the next 1 to 2 years, the debt payments we owe, we won't be able to cover them.
I don't know which is more scary. What could happen or how soon it could happen. 3 to 5 years, that's a blink.
That's fast. Yeah. Or us having to speaking of memes you mentioned earlier, is like, talking about China, and basically that's who our new boss is, China. Like that's that's how it could be. But, and I'm laughing because it's a scary thought, but that's where we could go, in the next few years. But yeah, in terms of, not to segue too much, but just kind of talking about all the metals that we offer and things of that nature, silver right now is really interesting. Mexico, one of the biggest miners of silver in the world, their production is way down, double digit down. They're having a hard time getting enough silver necessary. There's some new compliance issues in Mexico that they've created. Silver mining is down there, yet the need is up. They think there's going to be almost a 900,000 ounce shortage of silver this year. So I really love silver. I talk about it a lot. Next time I'm on, I'm going to have, my book will be finished, which is called Silver is the New Oil. And I think that silver is really exciting opportunity right now, sitting in the low 20s, very desirable metal. We are mining it here in the US also, but it's not the easiest metal to mine. And there's other metals that people want to mine. They want to mine lithium, rhodium. I mean, there's other things that are out there that they want to mine. Silver's sort of forgotten, I believe. And but the demand is there. And so it's pretty interesting to see what's going to happen with the mining of silver over the next few years.
So Mexico's having a hard time mining silver, as in it's hard to find in the earth. Like
yeah, it's hard, and the cost. So it's a combination of two things. Because obviously, silver at, let's say, $22 and some change, they need to pull it out of the ground, let's say at like 19, to make it make sense. They pull it out, they sell it to a refiner. There's always like a $2 to $3 difference between what it costs to pull it out of the ground. So if they can't pull it out of the ground at 19 because the costs are too high, labor costs, all the equipment, which is another byproduct of inflation, then you run into a situation where they're going to slow down production. So I think it's a combination of A and B. It's getting more difficult. It's more expensive. Now, when silver hits, 30, 32, 33, they'll have more of a spread, and they'll probably start, ramping up production again. But until it hits those numbers, as a business owner, it's not going to make sense, right? So they have to look at that cost too. And so silver's kind of been waffling around between 22 and 26, 27. So it's poised to go up, and it's if the demand continues, it's going to have to go up, because otherwise the miners they'll just keep pulling back production. And so that inherently should boost the price of the metal also.
And if they're having a tough time with the regulations and the cost of equipment and things of that nature, does it kind of create an opportunity for maybe some other foreign power, ourselves, China, to come in and say, hey, we'll supply the machines, or we'll cover your cost, or something like that? Or do you think Mexico would just kind of hang out until, like you said, the cost goes up more, and then that makes more sense? They have more profit.
Well, labor costs compare. The U.S. mines silver too, but the labor costs in Mexico are cheaper, so they're already getting labor at a good cost. The cost of the equipment is the cost of the equipment anywhere in the world. When you're buying in this kind of bulk, I just think when you look at the numbers of it, and that's why they're trying to mine more here in the U.S., which is great. But the numbers just are the numbers, and so at the end of the day, if that's what it's going to cost right now, then eventually we're going to have to move into a different situation where the price is going to have some kind of movement. And it makes sense because silver has hit $50 an ounce. It's hit it twice. It hit it in 2011 and it hit it in 1983. So it makes sense. I mean, everything else you're talking about orange juice earlier in the interview, which is skyrocketed, from the home alone and milk costs and oil and everything skyrocketed, yet silver is still sitting in the 22 range, yet the uses, thousands more uses from 1983 to today. So it's pretty interesting. I will go into that in my book, which I'll discuss on the next one, which I've done a lot of research to kind of show what's happening out in the market. But any way you want to slice it, there is an opportunity in silver. And also, I think the big opportunity in silver is if gold continues to go up the way it's going to, jewelry, I think the silver jewelry demand and will become important too, because at some point when gold's at $10,000 an ounce, are people going to want to pay that amount for a ring? Are they going to really, if they want legitimate gold in that, which, the coins and bars that we sell are 24 karat. Most people that when they buy a ring, it's 18 karat. So it's less. Mm-hmm. But just imagine, you're looking at, a simple guy's wedding ring could go from a few $1,000s to $8,000 to $10,000. Oh, and are people going to want, knowing, how frequently you can lose your ring, is that something that people, so I think silver's got a big opportunity in jewelry too. We saw silver jewelry spike during COVID. It was up, sales in the first year of COVID were up about 300% because people wanted an affordable silver option of jewelry, necklaces and things of that nature. They wanted to have something that made them feel good on their body. So silver sales skyrocketed during that time period. So I think that there's an opportunity for silver to slide a little heavier into the jewelry market too. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, that's very cool. And plus, it's cheaper than gold, and you can just say, hey, it's platinum. Nobody's going to take your ring off and check on the inside.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. Platinum. Well, platinum's still pretty affordable right now too. Platinum's in the 900 range. Relative.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, platinum is really affordable right now, which is another metal that we sell. Platinum and palladium are, for the first time, I think in the past 7 or 8 years, platinum and palladium are very close in price. So that's an interesting market too. We've been selling a lot more platinum, palladium over the last 6 months, because I think a lot of people remember when platinum and gold were the same price, and even platinum was more than gold. Yeah. Right now, platinum is pretty affordable.
Yeah, I guess my mind is still stuck in the olden days, so to speak. I always thought platinum was more expensive than gold.
Yeah, well, it's good marketing too. I think they've done
great marketing.
They've done a good job of making it seem like that. But to wrap up, Jericho, I think we're looking at a unique opportunity this year in some of the metals. We're here, Noble Gold Investments. We've continued to grow over the last few years. Working 6 days a week. So anybody that is interested to get more information on what I was talking about, or get a free gold guide or a silver guide, call us. You'll talk to someone, live person. There's no bots. You're going to talk to a real person here in the U.S., someone that loves gold and silver, platinum, palladium the way I do, and really get some information and really get to the bottom of what we do. The physical metals. It's not an ETF. You can buy real metal from us, get it shipped or put it in your IRA. And it's nice to know that you actually own it, and there's there's no middleman or anything. It's your metal, which is pretty unique in the investment space.
That's wonderful. And as you guys just heard him say, love the way he does. Colin and his crew love this. That means you're going to get great customer service. You're going to get a great product because there's passion behind it. And when you're done with your book, Silver is the New Oil, please come on here. We can do an interview about something else and then do one just about the book if you want. We can just talk about the book, push the book. Any way that I can help in that, I'd love to. And like you said, contact them, 877-646-5347 or noblegoldinvestments.com. All that information will be in the description box. And I thank you for coming through again. And another thing, in the comments, any questions that you guys have that you want me to ask Colin the next time he comes on, please let me know, because I'm sure he knows the answer. And plus, it's a great way for me to learn more about this stuff too. So in the comments of this video, let me know any questions you want me to ask him next time. Keep your eyes peeled for the new book that Colin will have out, Silver is the New Oil, 877-646-5347 or noblegoldinvestments.com. Colin, I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And until the next time.